Dear learners, I am Christina Georgy, your academic counselor. So in our previous session, we discussed units 8 and 9 of block 2, a study of Spenser, where we discussed the life and works of Edmund Spenser. So now let's move on to unit 10 titled Spenser's Poetry 1. So in this particular unit, we will look at Spenser's sonnets from the Amoretti sonnet sequence. This unit will attempt to offer an overview of Spenser's well-known sonnet sequence, the Amoretti. Here the focus will be primarily on formal elements and literary influences. This particular unit analyzes the 3 sonnets from Amoretti, namely sonnet numbers 34, 67 and 77. The influence in particular of the Italian court poets like Petrarch and the reworking of the sonnet will be explored in this unit as well. So first and foremost, the sonnet. We have already discussed the sonnet, the rhyme scheme and other details in the prelude to the study of poetry. If you were not present in the session, make sure that you refer to the video and study, because that is very important, because for each and every question pertaining to your MEG-01 course code TEE examination, you will have to make use of all these elements mentioned in Unit 2, because that serves as a platform where you could read and understand and practice the various elements that make up poetry, including the stanzaic forms, rhyme schemes, rhythm meters, poetry are mentioned there. So you need to have a detailed understanding in order to critically appreciate poems. I also mentioned a video where I've explained how to write answers for a question on critical appreciation. With respect to your course code, each and every answer should be structured that way, because any question on poetry would expect you to write answers from a critical perspective, and you won't score if you just write up the summary or some cut copy paste kind of answers from unauthorized sources. Just keep that in mind, because this is not at all a tough paper if you prepare in the proper format. Rely on your study material. Alright. Yes. So I'll just brush up your ideas on sonnet. It is a short lyric, as we discussed in our last class. There will be 14 lines. Alright. So it is developed in Italy during the Middle Ages. How many types of sonnets are there? I would like to have some interaction. How many types of sonnets? Is it 6, 3, 4 or 2? Lakshmi, Rekha, Anupama, all of them are saying it's 3. Yes, very much correct. There are 3 styles of sonnets, namely Spenserian, Shakespearean and Petrarchan. Yes, in our last class we discussed the essential characteristics of these types as well. That is, the most common is the Petrarchan sonnet. It has an octave, that 8-line octave and 6-line sestet. Then in Spenserian there will be 4 quatrains and a couplet. Remember the rhyme scheme as well: A B A B, B C B C, C D C D, E E. Remember Shakespearean sonnets? Yes, 4 quatrain rhyme scheme is what is seen there. There will also be a couplet, and this rhyme scheme of couplet will be different. Remember, A B A B, C D C D, E F F G G. Yes. So it became a way to express, or rather it became a vehicle to express love and sensuality in poetry, these sonnets. And Petrarch was the Italian poet most well known for his sonnets, and his Canzoni, a collection of love sonnets, is a sort of literary collection of passions of the lover. That is also mentioned in your study material. If we have a look at the section on courtly love traditions and poetry, we understand that when Sir Thomas Watt and the Earl of Surrey translated Petrarch's work into English in the 16th century, it became much influential in nature. So one key information here is that who translated Petrarch's work into English? Watt and Surrey. The sonnets in a way initiated a way of thinking and writing about love in England poetry, and it was chivalric in nature and hence based on feudal themes and ideas centered on the figure of the beloved as mistress of the poet. Okay, the figure of the beloved as mistress of the poet is important. The way of thinking about love or ideology of love was first formed in the poetry of Aquitaine and Provence in southern France towards the end of the 11th century. These men from France were the first to form this kind of idea. One may describe its basic tenets as the following. So this is towards the middle of the paragraph on page number 25. The celebration of adultery, the near deification of the mistress, the lover is very often unrequited in his love. What do you mean by unrequited love? Unrequited refers to something that is not being reciprocated. Okay? Yes. The celebration of faithful service. Yes, correct, Adira. Yeah, everybody is correct. Yeah. So the celebration of faithful service to the beloved, etc. There were several reasons for the emergence of this particular ideology of love also. You can read about such historical details from Unit 10 of your study material. Let's now focus our attention towards section 10.2, the Amoreti Sonnets. So there will be one question for the DEE from this section. Alright, so as I mentioned in my previous session, these sonnets, the Amoreti sonnet sequence is written in the year 1595, and it is based on his courtship of Elizabeth Boyle. Whose courtship of Elizabeth Boyle? Obviously, Edmund Spenser. So this particular sonnet sequence is based on Spenser's love relationship with Elizabeth Boyle over a period of 2 years. In a way, this particular sonnet sequence is remarkable among other sonnet sequences for its chronological narration. Now, before moving on to the text as such, I would like to take your attention towards some details with respect to the Amoreti sonnets. That is, there are 89 sonnets in this sequence, followed by 4 short lyrics and epithalamion. That is a long form. 89 sonnets, 4 short lyrics and epithalamion. For ease of understanding, you may scribble somewhere around your textbook like 89 sonnet plus 4 short lyrics plus epithalamion. That would do. And this very title is also significant. The Amoreti, the very term Amoreti means little loves, and it follows the Petrarchan conventions to a large extent. Not exactly the Petrarchan sonnet convention, but more or less similar in nature. So if we look at the text as such, the explanation on page number 26, section 10.2, the Amoreti sonnets share many of the typical characteristics of the court poetry of 16th century Renaissance England. That is why we have been learning about Renaissance, Reformation and others. So we know it is structured in the form of a sonnet, and these sonnets were kind of fashionable by the time Spenser was writing. So Spenser owes some of his imagery in particular to continental writers such as Italian poet Tasso. We already discussed him. Then the French poet Ronsard. Sonnets are essentially variations on the Petrarchan sonnet. So to comment on this Petrarchan sonnet as such, the Petrarchan sonnet, like all sonnets, have 14 lines, and as we know, it is divided into 8 plus 6, that is octave and a sestet. Alright, and the rhyme scheme would be ABBA, ABBA, CDE, CDE or CDC, CDC. Typically, the Petrarchan sonnet also employs the Petrarchan conceit of the beautiful yet unresponding, cruel and distant mistress or beloved, the object of the sonnet's address. Or very often, this particular sonnet would be addressed to such a person. That is what has been there. But this figure was picked up and reworked by the Elizabethan sonneters, especially in the translations of Petrarch. Alright, similarly, in this particular version of Spenser also, it doesn't follow the exact tradition of Petrarch. Am I making sense to you? Do you follow me? I'm trying to say that even if it is modeled on Petrarchan sonnet, it is not exactly this Petrarchan sonnet structure that is being followed. I'm so glad that you people understood. Yes. So, in Spenser's versions, the mistress, that is, as I mentioned, very often you will have a mistress or beloved. Okay? Yeah. So, this particular concept of the mistress is much more accessible and responsive in nature rather than the Elizabethan type or those seen in the poems of Petrarch. That is, the mistress of Spenser in this particular poetry is actually much more accessible and free in nature. The entire sonnet sequence can be split into 3 movements or phrases of passion. That is, the first, these are important, okay, page number 26, make sure that you read and understand. The entire sonnet divided into 3 phases. Yes, the first section, that is sonnets 1 to 36. We just have to study 34 in detail. So that one falls in this section. Okay. So it is largely in the mode of complaint and sees the mistress as tyrannical and his own love as oppressive. That is the characteristics of this first section. If we move on to sonnets 37 to 69, there we see that the lover and his mistress is restructured in a more explanatory way. Here the lover appears more aware of his mistress. The second section refigures the lover and his mistress in more exploratory and therefore more conciliatory terms, with the lover appearing more aware of his mistress as herself a feeling, thinking and speaking subject of passion. She becomes a thinking and speaking subject of passion. The last section, that is sonnet 70 to 87, we have 77, sonnet 77 for detailed study. So this section is a reversal of the first phase, that is, it sees the poet lover as successful in his amorous enterprise and the terms of relation change towards the subordination of the mistress to the desire and will of the lover. Yes, just keep that in mind. Whatever may be the case, it's the sonnets 34, 67 or 77 that would be there for your examination. Okay, you can expect annotations as well. Yes. So how do you study such poems? Since we have 10 blocks, we won't be able to read each and every poem in detail, but this being one of the first poems, I'll try to explain in a detailed manner. This will also demonstrate how actually to study these poems. So first and foremost, what you will have to do is to turn on to page number 36. So if you look at page number 36, you can see that they have given the texts of the sonnets mentioned. So the first text refers to the sonnet in consideration, that is sonnet 34. So how many lines are there? Obviously you don't have to count, it is a sonnet. So how many lines will be there? Yes, Rekha, congratulations, 14. Yes. So firstly you will have to read the text. There will be difficulty while reading because the English variant would be different. That is why they have given notes there. Remember, I won't be explaining this for all the hundreds of poems in this textbook. This is because this is the first poem that I'm explaining. Please make sure that you understand. Alright, firstly, try to read the text. I know you don't do that. That is why I'm explaining. This is a sonnet. It's easy. Okay, just make sure that you read. It won't be easy. So they have given you notes. Refer to the notes. I'll demonstrate the first sonnet. Okay. Like as a ship that through the ocean wide, by conduct of some star doth make her way, when as a storm hath dimmed her trusty guide, out of a course doth wander far astray. So I whose star that warned with a bright ray, me to direct with clouds is o'ercast, do wander now in darkness and dismay, through hidden perils round about me blast. Yet hope I well that when the storm is past, my Hellas, the Lord star of my life, will shine again and look on me at last, with lovely light to clear my cloudy grief. Till then I wander careful, comfortless, in secret sorrow and sad penitence. So this is what the essence of the poem is. I understand that there are words that are quite confusing or quite unknown to you. That is why they have given you the notes. If hidden perils mentioned here refers to the ambiguousness of the troubles, especially relating to his life in Ireland. There is this mention of Lord Star, which refers to the pole star. Alright, so I would like to provide you the essence or the summarized version of this sonnet, because this is being the first time that you are learning poetry with respect to this course. Here, if we look at the first few lines, the poet here, Spenser, says his possession is like a ship. What kind of ship? A ship that sails through the wide ocean with the help and guidance of a star. But suddenly, due to a storm, this shining star is kind of dimmed, and because of that, the ship wanders, okay, astray from the course. So he's saying that his condition is quite similar to that of a ship. But actually, after a course of time, this star reappears. The bright star that used to direct his way is now overcast with clouds, and he was wandering. After that, he is still hopeful that when the storm is over, after the storm, his pole star will shine again. This will reappear and it will look on him with lovely light. And gradually the clouds of grief will disappear. Until then, he'll wander full of worries. That is what is being explained there. It's very simple. All you have to understand is that it is a simple sonnet of 14 lines written by Spenser, and you need to know that it describes Spenser's break in relationship with Elizabeth Boyle and how he is waiting for her forgiveness. So if you look at section 10.2.1 of your textbook, the depiction of the beloved as a remote, almost inaccessible figure and its overall sense of subjugation is mentioned in the text. See, we first read the text, then we tried to understand the text. For example, everything is given in your textbook, so you can directly have the summarized sequence here, and there you read and understand the other important relevant aspects of this work. And it is said that it essentially follows the Petrarchan trope. What do you mean by trope? Trope refers to a recurrent theme or motive. Okay. Here it is said that Petrarchan trope. There could be a common theme present in all these Petrarchan type of works, or it could also be a motive. By motive, we are referring to a recurring idea or concept throughout a text. That could be a motive. So this Petrarchan trope was first popularized by Wyatt in his translation of the Italian poet. That is, this trope in poem is that of lover as a storm-tossed ship course in the grip of his passion. That comparison, that is said to be a trope. But here, Spenser introduces this idea of the beloved as a star that guides him through the sea of life. Here, that star mentioned is considered to be his beloved. In storm, her light is hidden from him by clouds. As a result, he wanders in darkness and dismay. But unlike the other Elizabethan versions of this trope, does not attribute the storm to his beloved, implying thereby that it is a storm of unquenched desires. Okay, here Spenser hopes that when the storm is past, she will shine again as his guiding star. Okay, I'll repeat that trope meaning. Okay. If we look at the works of a particular writer, okay, there will be some recurring themes that could be themes of love or themes of nature or something like that. If we look at the works of those writers who write about nature, the major theme would be nature and love for nature. Likewise, here in this sonnet, in the Petrarchan type of tropes, one popular among them is the portrayal of the lover as a storm-tossed ship. It is important for you to understand how this particular poem is different from the Petrarchan form. Okay, so don't forget to read and understand page number 27. Okay, it is very much detailedly given. Even if it has some deviation from the Petrarchan form, it still has 3 quatrains and a couplet. And we can split it into an octave and a sestet. That is, the octave will contain 2 quatrains, that is 4 lines each, and the sestet will contain a quatrain and a couplet. That is, if we look at this work thematically, the first 8 lines, the octave present the poet's current situation of feeling lost in a sea of trouble. That is, without the pole star, he has got no guidance. That is, without his beloved by his side, he has got no essence of life. The first quatrain here lays out the analogy, while the second applies to the speaking subject himself. Analogy means a comparison. If we speak about the last lines, the next 6 lines reverse the mood to anticipate the release from the pearls. That is, there ends a positive note where he expects the situation to be better, and finally culminating in the union of them both. Rhyme scheme here is AB, AB, BC, BC, CD, CD, EE. It is said that the 3 quatrains reflect a total experience in which the hope and anticipation of relief from the experience become a part of it. The final couplet is also important. It functions as a reflective commentary distinct from the experience, and in fact almost objectively rendering the experience as a total and continuing one. So at times they ask for annotations as well. That is, they will give lines from the text from which you will have to write. You wrote for your assignments, so just be sure of the contents of each poem, so that if you look at the lines, you will be having an idea from which work these lines are taken. So that was sonnet 34. So if you look at sonnet number 67 on page number 36, I'm referring to the text. There also you can see 14 lines. It starts as follows: like as a huntsman after weary chase, seeing the game from his escape way, sits down to rest him in some shady place, with panting hounds beguiled of their prey. So let's not read the entire poem. It's up to you to read and understand. Make sure that you read page number 27. That gives you the basic idea on this poem. The basics are the same. It's a 14-line sonnet. It also employs a common trope. What is the trope here? The setting of the hunt with the beloved as a deer, haunted by the poet as huntsman. I'll give you a brief idea. That is, in this particular sonnet, the lover compares himself to a huntsman. In the previous one, it was a comparison to a ship. Alright, so in this particular one, he compares himself to a huntsman who has been in the pursuit of his prey. But this chase has exhausted him, and he has decided to forsake the hunt and the prey. Okay, he has finally decided to give up. But then a deer appears. This condition alludes to Christ also. This is mentioned in the section 10.2.2. That is the setting of the hunt with the beloved as a deer being hunted by the poet as huntsman is important. He not only wins the chase but presents the victory over the beloved. The conquest of the prey is celebrated in this poem. The rhyme scheme, you will have to mention both the explanation with respect to its meaning and also the structural explanation is also expected. The rhyme scheme A B A B B C B C C D C D E E is the same here. Then 3 quatrains plus a couplet is seen. But here we can't actually separate it into an octave and a sestet. That is one difference. Being a poem, it lays out the moments of the event in 3 steps. That is 3 quatrains followed by a commenting couplet. You can read in detail from the text. Moving on to Sonnet 77. Like Sonnet 34, he describes a condition rather than an event. Spenser's intentions are not to describe physical beauty of this beloved, but to forge a connection between physical beauty and spiritual love. He links the erotic with the spiritual and the sacred here. So here in this poem, Spenser wishes to suggest that the beloved is so full of virtue and religious and moral purity that even the sight of her breasts can only arouse in him an appreciation of these qualities in her, rather than simply physical desire. Make sure that you recognize this 4 lines if they ask you this for annotation. Exceeding sweet, yet void of sinful vice, that may sort yet none could your taste. That one. Okay, if they ask you, it's about the sight that arouses in him the appreciation of the qualities, the beauty in the beloved. There is a reference to paradise that refers to the original sin, the Adam-Eve story, the fruit of the tree of knowledge, etc. Okay, that is that kind of a reference. Just keep that in mind. Okay, so we have looked at some of the important aspects of these 3 sonnets, namely sonnets 34, 67 and 77. Some of the important aspects of the courtly love tradition and the transformation in Spenser's poetry along with the historical reasons were touched upon. As I said, we have limitations in the 6-hour sessions, so you, the learners, are expected to read these poems, refer to the study material and understand the different aspects with respect to the poem. The academic counselor could maximum give you an overview of the blocks. That is what is possible. We examined the short poems, Amoreti poems today. Then in our upcoming session, we'll discuss the longer poems by Spenser, namely Epithalamion and Prothalamion. Both these are wedding poems that deal with the celebration of marriage, but they do have significant differences in treatment, style and intent. So we'll discuss this as part of Unit 11 in our next session.